Life is not a fairy tale. No matter how many wishes you make or how many times you hope that the universe will put things in their place, the reality will always be the same. Suffering is inevitable. We've all been through that moment when a relationship ends, when our expectations crumble, and suddenly we face the void of what we've lost. But don't get me wrong, this is not a tragedy without an exit. It's an opportunity, and I'm not talking about those empty self-help words, but a real opportunity to rebuild yourself, to come back stronger, to learn to be the master of your emotions and not a slave to them. It's not easy, nor is it a magical cure, but if there's something that can pull you out of the hole you're in, it's Stoicism. The teachings of the Stoics are not abstract theories, they are concrete principles that will help you stop waiting for what you can't control, accept what you can't change, and find peace even in the deepest pain. And along with this, self-forgiveness, learning to free yourself from the burden of guilt and remorse that keep you trapped in the past. Today we will talk about how to overcome the emotional suffering caused by a love loss or a personal disappointment. There are no excuses. There's no time to mourn eternally. The only thing left is to take control and apply these 8 lessons that will allow you to rise, take the reins of your life, and come out stronger on the other side. If you're ready to face the truth and get out of suffering, keep listening. This is not for the weak. It's for those who are ready to change and evolve. 1. The world does not play in your favor. Stop expecting justice. It's a hard blow, but it's the truth. The world is not here to give you what you think you deserve. We have been taught since we were children that things work in a fair way, that if you do good, you will receive good, that if you give yourself in a relationship, that person will give you the same. The reality is much harsher. The suffering you are experiencing now, that loss that is tearing you apart inside, is not a punishment from life, nor an injustice that needs to be corrected. It's simply the nature of the world we live in. Why? Because life is not governed by a universal rule that rewards the good or punishes the bad. There is no higher entity that guarantees that the people who suffer the most will receive their reward. On the contrary, suffering is an inherent part of existence. No matter how many times you strive, no matter what you do, life is not designed to be fair, nor to compensate you for your efforts. And this does not mean that all is lost, nor that it is a sentence of hopelessness. Quite the opposite. By accepting that the world is not going to play in your favor, you are going to free yourself from one of the main causes of suffering, the expectation of justice. Every time you expect the universe to give you what you deserve, you are trapping yourself in a mental trap that will do you more harm. That ideal of justice, that need for everything to be put in its place, keeps you chained to an idea that is out of your control. Do you think that because you gave your love, your time, your effort, then you deserve everything to be returned to you in equal measure? Life does not work like that. And if you keep waiting for that fair retribution, you are going to get stuck in a spiral of frustration, resentment, and bitterness. It's time to stop waiting. Stop thinking that life owes you something. Stop expecting that person to come back, to apologize to you, or that somehow everything you have lost will be replaced. Do you know what the worst part of all this is? That when you keep expecting things to be resolved in a fair way, you are only staying tied to something that will never happen. And instead of moving forward, you get stuck in the suffering caused by those broken expectations. The Stoics understood this perfectly. Marcus Aurelius, one of the greatest exponents of this philosophy, understood that what was happening around him was something he could not control. He did not focus on what the world owed him, nor on what he thought he deserved. Instead, he learned to accept the unpredictable nature of life. Marcus Aurelius said, "Do not seek for events to happen as you wish, but wish for them to happen as they do." It's a powerful concept because it frees you from the burden of having to expect things to be a certain way. Suffering comes from that constant struggle against reality. This concept is not something that is understood immediately. We live in a world where the idea of justice is instilled in us from a young age. We grow up thinking that if we give our best, if we sacrifice ourselves, if we give ourselves to others, everything should turn out well in the end. But that doesn't always happen. And that doesn't mean that what you do has no value, but that life is unpredictable, and it's not always going to reward you the way you think it should. It's important to stop thinking that life should follow a rule of equity or justice that guarantees you compensation for pain. Because when you do, you are putting yourself in a position of victim, of someone who expects the world to treat him fairly, and that only increases your suffering. The key is to stop expecting life to give you what you think it owes you, and accept what it is, just as it is. This does not mean that you should be passive or conformist. Accepting that the world does not play in your favor does not mean that you settle for suffering, but that it gives you the strength to get out of it. The important thing is to stop expecting someone or something to do you justice, because when you do this, that's when you really take control of your life. Accepting this reality is freeing yourself from one of the heaviest burdens you can carry, the expectation that the world owes you something. Because the reality is that the world owes you nothing. And when you stop expecting what you can't control, when you stop getting stuck in that idea of justice, you start to free yourself from suffering and take the reins of your life. Instead of expecting things to be a certain way, you focus on what you can change, your attitude, your reaction, and your perspective on what happens. The first step is to accept that pain is not a punishment. It is not something you deserve, but an inevitable part of life. But what really matters is not the pain itself, but how you decide to face it. Are you going to stay trapped, waiting for what cannot be, or are you going to accept what is and use it to grow and move forward? 2. Make pain your teacher, not your executioner. Pain is not just a negative experience. Often, we see it as something we must avoid at all costs, like a relentless enemy that wants to destroy us. But imagine for a moment that pain was not an enemy, but a teacher. A teacher who, although tough, has something to teach you. A teacher who, despite his severity, is there to prepare you, to make you stronger, wiser, more capable of handling whatever comes your way. Think of a blacksmith. To forge a strong sword, he must subject the metal to intense heat, and then strike it over and over again with a hammer. Each blow is a challenge, a suffering for the metal. But in the end, after all that process, the metal transforms into a stronger, sharper sword. Pain, like heat and blows, is the process that shapes you, that transforms you, that turns you into someone capable of facing the world with greater strength. Pain can be an executioner if you choose to see it as such. If you resign yourself to suffer without learning from what happens to you, if you sink into sorrow and frustration, pain will consume you. But if you choose to see it as a teacher, you give yourself the opportunity to learn from it, to use it to grow, to turn it into something that propels you forward. Suffering does not have to be the end of your story, just the beginning of a new stage where you come out stronger than you went in. Every time you feel that pain, instead of lamenting what you lost, or what you cannot change, ask yourself, what can I learn from this? How can I use this pain to improve? Pain is showing you something. It is showing you your limits, but it is also showing you your ability to overcome them. It is teaching you lessons that are only learned when life pushes you to face them. When you stop seeing pain as a punishment and start seeing it as an opportunity to learn, everything changes. Instead of being a burden, pain becomes a tool for transformation. Every time you overcome a wound, you become stronger, wiser, more capable of facing whatever comes. Pain does not destroy you. It shapes you, it forms you, and it prepares you for what's next. And most importantly, pain reminds you that you are human. It reminds you that, although you cannot control everything that happens in your life, you do have the power to decide how to respond. You can get stuck in sadness, in anger, in regret, or you can use that pain as a drive to improve, to evolve. The choice is in your hands. Do not let pain make you feel defeated. Make pain work for you. Make it a teacher that guides you, that helps you become the person you need to be, to face what comes. Because, in the end, what defines you most is not what happens to you, but how you choose to face it. 3. Stop dragging yourself for love. Stand up with dignity. Love sometimes presents itself as a battle, and in that battle, you drag yourself. You drag yourself to follow the other, to maintain a relationship that no longer nourishes you, to cling to something you know is lost. You think that if you give yourself completely, if you sacrifice, if you do everything in your power, things will improve. But all you're doing is losing yourself, surrendering to something that doesn't deserve your dignity. It's as if you are running after a moving train. The train is out of your reach, and you keep running with the hope of catching it, that if you run enough, you'll manage to get on. But what you don't see is that while you're running after the train, you're leaving behind what really matters: your own well-being, your own dignity, your self-love. Is it worth continuing to run when you know all you're going to achieve is exhaustion? It's time to stand up. It's time to stop dragging yourself for love, to stop giving up everything you are for something that doesn't value you, that doesn't respect you, that doesn't do you good. Love is not a constant sacrifice. Love shouldn't be a battlefield where one loses oneself. Love should be a mutual construction, a union of two people who elevate each other, not a struggle where one drags for the other. When you stop dragging yourself for love, when you stand up with dignity, that's when you really start to value what you are and what you deserve. Think about the last time you clung to something or someone that didn't reciprocate. How did you feel? Maybe you felt that you were giving yourself completely, that if you gave more, things would change. But all you got was wear and tear, frustration, and in the end, pain. Because love is not about who gives more, but about who respects oneself. When you drag yourself, you lose your strength. But when you stand up, you realize that the real power is in your ability to say enough and move on. It's an act of bravery to stand up, to know that you deserve better than being behind something or someone that doesn't value you. It's not about being cold or indifferent. It's about being aware of what you deserve and what no longer serves you. Standing up doesn't mean giving up. It means recognizing your own worth, your dignity. Self-love is the first step to attracting a true love, one that doesn't make you drag, but elevates you. To stop dragging yourself for love is to learn to walk with your head held high, to understand that love begins with yourself. If you don't respect yourself, if you don't value yourself, how do you expect others to do so? It's a reminder that dignity should never be negotiated. Stand up. Don't keep dragging yourself for something that doesn't do you good. True strength lies in recognizing that what you really need is self-love, and from there, everything else will come. 4. The past is an anchor. Let it go, or it will sink you. The past, that place where we all have been trapped at some point. It can be a painful memory of what you lost, a relationship that ended badly, or even a series of decisions that now fill you with regret. In any case, the past is always there, waiting in the shadows, ready to drag you back to a place where the pain never seems to heal. And the worst part is that many times, unconsciously, we allow the past to control our present, our emotions, our decisions. We cling to what no longer is, believing that somehow it can change our reality. But here's the harsh truth. If you don't let go of the past will control you. The past is not just a memory, it's a burden you carry on your shoulders. The suffering that lost love, that disappointment caused you, only remains alive because you insist on reliving it over and over again. Every time you get stuck in memories, in the what-ifs, you are giving power to something that is no longer in your life. You are clinging to something that is only preventing you from moving forward. And the worst part of all is that as long as you continue to cling to that emotional burden, you will remain anchored in the same place, unable to move forward. It's like trying to walk while dragging a heavy chain. It's impossible to make significant progress. Every time you hold on to the past, you are feeding a lie that you can still change it. The truth is that you can't. And as long as you remain trapped in that lie, you will only hurt yourself more. Suffering feeds on the memories you can't let go of. The times you wonder what would have happened if you had made different decisions or if the other person had done the same are only keeping you trapped in what you can't change. Regret will not give you back what you lost, nor will it give you the answers you seek. It will only continue to sink you deeper into the same pain. Letting go of the past does not mean forgetting it or denying what happened. It doesn't mean that you should act as if nothing had happened or that you have to erase those memories from your mind. What it means is that you should let go of the control you have given those memories over your life. You are no longer the person you were at that time. Your life is not defined by what happened, but by what you decide to do today, by how you decide to face it, and more importantly, by how you decide not to let it control you. The past only has the power that you give it. The process of letting go of the past requires courage. It's not easy, and it's not going to happen overnight, but it's a necessary act to move forward. You can remember, yes, but don't stay there. You can learn from what you lived, but don't stay anchored to it. True freedom comes from accepting that what has already happened cannot be altered, and that your future depends solely on what you do today. Instead of allowing the past to control you, make it a teacher, not a prison. Use what you have learned, what you have suffered, to make you stronger and wiser. People who are stuck in the past do not move forward, but those who let it go, who accept it and learn from it, are the ones who take control of their life and find peace in the present. Suffering does not end immediately, but by letting go of the past, you begin to free yourself from its power. And when you let go of that burden, you make room for the new, for new opportunities and new experiences. The past has left you lessons, yes, but those lessons don't need to drag you down. You have a life ahead of you, and the only thing that is stopping you from moving forward is you. 5. Wanting to control everything is the root of your suffering. Here's the harsh reality. You think you can control everything, but you can't. Nobody can. And the idea that you can control everything is one of the main sources of suffering you're going to experience in life. You think that if you manage everything precisely, if you anticipate every move, if you manage to have everything under control, everything will be fine. But all you achieve with that mentality is to drown yourself in a sea of anxiety, stress, and frustration. Control is an illusion, and clinging to that illusion will only sink you deeper. Do you know what's the worst part? When you try to control everything, what you're really doing is trying to control the uncontrollable, the actions of others, situations you can't predict, reactions you can't handle. And what happens when you can't control all this? The result is clear: suffering. Because no matter how hard you try, things won't always turn out the way you want. And when they don't happen as you expect, the pain increases. The Stoics, those guys who lived thousands of years before you, understood this perfectly. Seneca, for example, already warned us. The greatest obstacle to life is waiting for a perfect moment. What he's telling us is that suffering does not come from circumstances, but from the expectation that those circumstances should go according to our plan. If you expect to have control over everything, you're going to live frustrated. And if you expect everything to align as you wish, then suffering will be inevitable. You face a love or personal disappointment, and the first thing you want to do is regain control. If you could turn back time, if you could make everything different, if you could change what happened. But what if I tell you that this need to control is precisely what is dragging you into the deepest suffering? Because in real life, you don't have that power, and continuing to cling to the idea that you do is like trying to hold water with your hands. The tighter you squeeze, the more it will escape. You have to understand that control is just an illusion. Nobody has total control of their life. What you can control is how you respond, how you face what happens to you. And that's one of the greatest lessons Stoicism has to offer. Epictetus, another great Stoic, said, "Don't worry about what you can't control. That's it. Don't waste your energy trying to control what's out of your reach. Life is going to go on, no matter what you do." This is where true strength comes in, knowing when to surrender. It's not surrendering like a victim. It's not being passive in the face of circumstances. It's surrendering to the reality that you can't change what has already happened. You're not going to recover the loss. The words said are not going to be erased. The feelings are not going to be the same again. That's what you have to accept. And once you accept this, you start to free yourself from useless suffering. You stop fighting against something you can't control and instead focus on what you can do. Manage your reaction, control your emotions, and do the best with what you have. Suffering comes when you want to have total control over something that's not in your hands. You believe that if you focus enough, if you do everything possible to fix things, the suffering will stop. But that mindset only keeps you trapped in a wheel that has no end. And as long as you stay there, you're going to keep hurting yourself. You're going to wear yourself out in vain. So, what can you do instead? Learn to accept that you can't control everything, but you can control your reaction to what happens to you. You have no power over what others do, but you have power over how you choose to face those acts. You have no control over the future, but you have control over what you do today. And that's real power. Power is not in forcing everything to go as you want, but in accepting what life gives you and using it to your advantage. You don't have to be perfect, but you can be wise in how you handle what comes your way. In the end, true peace comes from letting go of control, not because it's easy, but because it's the only thing that gives you freedom. When you stop fighting against the uncontrollable, you free yourself from unnecessary suffering. And over time, you realize that peace is not found in having everything under control, but in accepting that you don't, and still finding strength. 6. Pain strikes, but you decide if it knocks you down. Pain is inevitable. No one escapes from it. All of us, at some point, have felt that sting in the chest, that feeling of emptiness when something we wanted crumbles, be it a breakup, the loss of an opportunity, or the disappointment of something that didn't turn out as you expected. Pain hits you. It shakes you. And in those moments, it's easy to feel powerless, as if the world is crumbling around you. But what you don't understand in that moment, what perhaps you struggle to see, is that you, and only you, decide what to do with that pain. You can stay stuck in that blow, wallow in sorrow, let that pain consume you, or you can do something radically different. Use it. Use that pain as fuel for something bigger. Because no matter how hard life has hit you, no matter what you have lost, you always have the option to get up and move on. You may not be able to change everything, but you will always have the power to decide how you react. Pain doesn't have to be your enemy. It can be an opportunity in disguise. Life is not going to give you everything you want. It's not going to make things easy for you, but it's in those moments of pain, when you feel most vulnerable, when you can truly find your strength. The real question is not why it hurts, but what are you going to do with that pain? When you feel defeated, when pain hits you hard, that's when you most need to understand that the fall does not define who you are. The way you get up is what truly defines you. It's not about avoiding pain or hoping everything is easy. It's about being stronger than the pain, using it to propel you towards something bigger. It's true that pain can be crushing. It can make you doubt everything, yourself, what you are capable of. But in that moment of fragility is when you have one of the most powerful opportunities of your life, to decide not to let the pain knock you down. You can let it consume you, or you can get up and say, "You're not going to stop me." It's not about denying the pain, but accepting that it's part of the process, part of the journey. And with each step, with each small effort to move forward, pain loses power over you. Yes, the pain is real, but the power you have over it is even more real. What you decide to do with that pain is what really matters. Are you going to stay there, waiting for it to pass? Or are you going to take it and turn it into something that propels you into action? Don't let suffering define you. Let it be the motivation that pushes you to do what you thought was impossible. Life is not going to give you what you want, but it will give you the opportunity to choose how to respond. And that choice is what determines your future. Are you going to stay defeated by pain, or are you going to use it as your strength to move forward? 7. Nothing and no one is yours. Attachment is your prison. Imagine you're on a ship in the middle of the ocean. The ship is your life, and the people, objects, experiences you value are the luggage you carry. Everything seems to be going well until suddenly the waves start to get bigger. The currents are stronger. The wind begins to blow forcefully, and in a moment of panic, you look at everything you have on board. You cling with all your strength to your luggage, to your memories, to those relationships you consider essential for your happiness. But as you cling with all your might, the ship wobbles more, and the higher waves threaten to capsize you. You realize that no matter how much you struggle, the more you cling to what you carry with you, the harder it becomes to maintain balance. Attachment is that. It's as if you're clinging to something that no longer makes sense to something that keeps you trapped. The more you try to control, the more you lose control. Because in life, what really matters is not how much you cling to what you have, but how you navigate when the waves come. The fear of losing what you have, what gives you security, keeps you prisoner. It keeps you tied to a past that no longer exists, to an illusion of control that only increases suffering. When you try to own, control, and define your happiness through what is outside of you, you become a prisoner of those things. And the worst of all is that the more you cling, the more you sink. Think about the times when you've been stuck in a relationship, in a situation, or in a job that didn't fulfill you, but you didn't know how to let go. What happened? The more you kept it close, the more it wore out, the more it drained you. The key is to let go. I'm not saying you should stop valuing what you have, but do recognize that what you have does not define you. No one and nothing is yours. Everything you consider yours is only temporary. And when you accept this, you free yourself from that heavy burden you carry, as if you were throwing all the unnecessary luggage from your ship. What remains is the most valuable: your ability to navigate the storms, your resilience, your ability to move forward no matter what has gone. Attachment is like a chain that drags you to the bottom of the ocean, a chain that you have forged yourself. And to be able to move forward, to be able to navigate to calm waters, you need to learn to let go. Not because what you had was not important, but because understanding that nothing is really yours gives you the power to be free. It gives you the freedom to move without the restrictions of what no longer serves, to take what life gives you without fear of losing it. When you stop clinging to what you can't control, when you stop defining your happiness by what others give you or what you own, that's when you really start to own yourself. And that's when you discover true peace. The peace that is only found when you let go of what traps you. 8. If you're waiting for someone to make you happy, you've already lost. Happiness is not about finding the perfect person, nor waiting for someone to come and save you from your pain. Happiness is not in the hands of another person, nor in what others can do for you. If you're waiting for someone to make you happy, you're already in a losing battle. Happiness begins and ends within you. And if you can't find it for yourself, you'll never find it, no matter how many people come into your life. It's as if you're waiting for a stranger to give you the keys to open a door that's inside you. Can you imagine waiting for someone else to control your access to peace and happiness? That's what you're doing when you're waiting for someone else to be responsible for your emotional well-being. You're giving your power to others, hoping that someone will complete you, that someone will fill that void you feel. But the reality is that if you can't be happy by yourself, no relationship, no achievement, no person will be able to fill that space. Life is not about waiting for the other to make you feel complete. It's about learning to be complete by yourself. Think about people who keep seeking their happiness through others. They go from relationship to relationship, from search to search, hoping that the next person will be the answer to their problems. But in the end, they remain empty. Why? Because they've never learned to be happy with who they are, with what they have, with their own company. Nobody can give you what you don't have within you. It's time to stop waiting for another to make you happy. No matter how many times you tell yourself that that person is the key, that if only they loved you more, everything would be fine. The truth is that no one can be the solution to your pain. No one can fill that void, because that void belongs to no one else but you. It's a space that only you can fill, and you do it when you start to take control of your life and your emotions. No one is going to come to save you. No one is going to put their happiness in your hands. You are the only one responsible for what you feel. This doesn't mean that you shouldn't have meaningful relationships or that you shouldn't want to share your life with someone. What it means is that, before expecting another person to make you happy, you must first learn to be happy alone. Happiness is in you, not in what others give you. When you stop depending on others to feel complete, that's when you can truly start to enjoy relationships, because now you see them as an opportunity to share, not to seek validation. If you're waiting for someone to make you happy, you've already lost. True happiness comes from emotional independence, from finding your inner peace, and from stopping to put your well-being in the hands of others. It's time to reclaim your power and understand that only you are responsible for your happiness.
Thank you for staying until the end of the video. If you watched the whole thing, comment "I am Stoic" as our secret signal to know that you're a true student of Stoicism. Don't forget to subscribe and give the video a like if you enjoyed it. See you in the next video, and remember, keep cultivating your Stoic mind.